Hey guys, we're live. It's the standard 5-minute countdown for the Sunday Night Spectacular. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff in the NFL, so join us in just a few minutes as we start to share and direct this podcast to you and all of your friends. Here we go. Are you ready there, brother?
I am ready.
Well,
how's everybody doing?
Yeah.
What's up, Ron? I see Ron's made the show this week.
Ron is here? Oh, my goodness. Well, that means we might actually have a good show this time, right? Is that how it works?
Exactly. How's everybody been doing?
Well, I'm doing good. I know somebody that's not doing good. Rashee Rice.
Rashee Rice.
We'll get to him before it's too late. But I think you had our first topic of the night. If you want, go ahead.
Tom Brady says he wouldn't rule out a comeback if the right team called. Do you think it's possible that he comes back?
Shit, no. So this is my take on this whole deal, okay? This is called looking for content, okay? Tom Brady is in the process of purchasing a piece of the Las Vegas Raiders. As an owner, he would not be allowed to participate for any team in the NFL, even the Raiders, based on their bylaws and guidelines and whatever. He would have to get some sort of special dispensation or whatever. But I'm sure he would only be able, only for the Raiders. But once again, they would have to do something really special in order to make a exception for him. This is him just on a barbershop podcast, whatever the hell, trying to, just create content and leave the possibility open that, oh my God, the great and powerful Tom Brady is still possibly coming back.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, because let's be honest, he would have to stop buying the Raiders to come back. So if something's like that's going to happen, it got to happen right now, because as soon as that deal goes through, he's not going to sell, his stake after it already went through to come back. But what it kind of tells me is somebody maybe offered him the right amount of money. Like right now, there might be a slim chance. But I agree, he's not coming back.
First of all, nobody's got the salary cap room to add him. Okay. Second of all, he's getting $37.5 million to work for Fox this year, whether it be in the studio, in the booth, whatever, a 10-year, $375 million contract he signed a couple years ago. He's all in on the broadcasting with Fox this year.
Yeah.
You are correct,
just
like we just said.
What's up? How you doing, Yoli? Thank you for tuning in. So that covers that topic. So that our next topic we can jump into is this one. Will the NFL teams start signing kickers out of the USFL instead of drafting kickers in the draft?
Okay, so last year, there was a really good kicker played in one of the spring leagues that are now combined, and they are the United Football League. So you've got the USFL conference and you have the XFL conference, and they each have 4 teams. They downsized from what would have been 16 teams to 8 because, they eliminated half their teams in each league. But through the first 3 weeks of this season in the UFL, the kickers have made 11 50-plus yard field goals. And so the NFL is starving for good kickers. And here you've got a ton of these guys. The Cowboys signed one from one of the spring leagues last year, and he's been doing a good job for the Cowboys. I think he even made the Pro Bowl. And so, you've got, I think the main guy that everybody's talking about is Bates, plays for the Michigan Panthers. He's kicked a 53-yarder and a 54-yarder.
and
just
a
himself.
and a 64-yarder.
The longest, 64. I'm sorry, 64-yard field goal. Okay. The longest field goal in NFL history is a 66-yarder, which you know very well. Hit the crossbar and went over to beat the Lions by Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens a couple of years ago. Okay. This guy kicked a 64-yarder and also a 63-yarder here in the first couple weeks of the year. And there have been a lot of 50-plus yard field goals kicked in the spring league. And so I think absolutely they're all going to get a look during training camp. And,
You're getting Ron in his feelings.
It's in the past, but it's history, and it's important because it is the longest one in the history of the NFL.
And a crazy note of that is, what are the chances both of the longest kicks we've seen made have both been at Ford Field?
That's right. And he cleared it with ease when he kicked the 64-yarder.
I mean, I think it's smart. I think it's going to suck for kickers coming in the draft. It could start really sucking for them in the next couple years because, they might not get drafted and they might have to go to USFL. But I think with kickers, we've all seen teams sign a kicker, that kicker start having trouble midseason, they get rid of him, and then you never hear that guy again. And a lot of times it's young guys. And so maybe you would see some of these kickers actually starting to get more of a chance by going to the USFL, getting practice, developing, getting better skill before coming to the NFL. They're still making pro money, maybe not as much as the NFL kicker, but they're still getting paid to play football, and they're still a professional football player. And if they do good there and get their skills up, they'll have a shot at the league.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because Dallas did it, and I know the Lions can't do anything to offer Bates a contract, but it's already been reported that the Lions already reached out to the Panthers to speak with Bates. So there's a good chance that Bates ends up in Detroit next year on the NFL team, unless somebody else sneaks in and grabs him before us.
Right. Yeah,
you got that right. Not a line kicker.
Michigan Panther of the that would be the USFL conference in the United Football League. Let's move on to Ray Rice and an update in his situation. You've got what you have is you have, in my estimation, trumped up charges because everybody pleads down. And so they threw as many charges as possible on Ray Rice. They issued a warrant, which is ridiculous because they knew right where he was. But because he is a celebrity or a football player or whatever, they give him an opportunity to turn himself in, which he did. Okay, there are 8 charges. Those charges are, if you give me just a second here, because I wanted to get this right. Excuse me, sorry. So it starts off with 6 counts of collision involving bodily injury, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and 1 count of aggravated assault. First of all, aggravated assault, a vehicle technically can be used as a weapon, okay? But it didn't mean to hit someone. There was no premeditation. That is a count that is a trumped up charge that will get thrown out. The 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury has to be permanent disfigurement loss of a limb or close to causing death. Now, my understanding is that the worst that come out of this is some lady got some stitches in her eyelid or close to her eye. I don't believe that that is considered, permanent disfigurement. Okay. And so that's another charge that will just kind of get thrown in with the 6 counts of collision involving bodily injury. Now, each one of those carries, a pretty hefty fine, and the chance for, jail time. In all of the things that I've read, what's fascinating to me is there's no charge for leaving the scene of the accident. And it was made such a big deal that they found marijuana in one of the vehicles, and there's no charge for drugs in any of the stuff, Chris.
Yeah.
And so, my estimation is that this is going to be, how much money does he got? How good a lawyer do you have type of situation. I believe there will be a hefty fine. He will get like 2 years probation. He will have to pay restitution. The other, any bodily injuries and all that stuff, every one of them people's going to sue. And they're going to get money out of him. And in exchange for the money, that's going to, wipe out a lot of this, crap that's going on. Obviously, one of the buddies that's with him took the drug charge to keep him out of trouble, if it was his or not. And the leaving the scene of the crime or whatever, if they called, which we don't have all the information, and told them, that this is where it was, this is what's going on. Everybody looks like they're okay. Nobody's screaming, hollering, and being like, oh, we need an ambulance. And then they left, depending on certain situations, they may not get in trouble for the whole, obviously, because they don't have a charge for it. We don't have all the information. Anything that can show that he did anything right, nobody says anything about. What they want is clicks. They want, the spotlight on what's going on. They want, to make, celebrities getting away with shit, and all that. He's going to get in trouble, but he didn't kill anybody. It doesn't matter how fast he was going. He broke the law. The speed does not matter. Okay. No one was killed, Now, in my opinion is that them leaving the scene instantly, in my mind, they were either drinking or smoking, and therefore that would have been a DUI, and that's why they left. And so they avoided that, okay, by not being there. But, the whole, what do I want to call it? It took them a couple of days, for them to get in contact, supposedly. At least that's the information we have.
Yeah.
You've got TMZ crawling all over this because it gives them a story to talk about a celebrity. And you've got, Adam Schefter and ESPN are all over it, because, it gives them something different to talk about than the Lakers and the Cowboys and the Yankees. And so, they're looking for things to talk about. I don't know why he waited so long to turn himself in. This is not as serious, in my opinion, like Cam Sutton's charges. Absolutely. Cam Sutton tried to premeditatedly choke out the girl or whatever. That was physical contact. It was not a quote unquote accident, that was in traffic. Traffic is a lot different than, actual, crime stuff, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on Facebook and YouTube here. My whole thing is that he's not gonna be in that much trouble, and he will play. In the NFL, he's not going to get kicked out of the league or anything crazy like that. There's a chance he'll be suspended, but the NFL is going to wait and see so that they get all the information because, this being a traffic violation, it is not something that they can throw their weight around and subpoena people over. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they can have an investigation all they want. He doesn't have to necessarily talk to them. And other people don't have to talk to him unless, they're offered money or whatever in order to talk. And then the information isn't worth as much because these people were paid. And so, like I said, I think what's going to end up happening is the reason why it took so long for him to turn himself in is because he's making arrangements for which station is he going to go into. Okay, he's already in contact with his lawyer. Which station is he going to go to? How much is the bail going to be? Okay, because, with everything that's going on, him being a celebrity, hell, we're going to make it way more than it would have been, as far as the money goes. And so, because they want their chunk of cheese, they know he's going to bail himself out. And so, Which station is he going to go to? How much is it going to cost? So he's got the money ready. So all he's got to do is go in, get booked, get your fingerprints and your mug shot and all your other shit, and then walk right the hell back on out. So that's what the whole, why did it take so long? I mean, the warrant was arrested in the morning, and he turned himself in the afternoon and was out on bail just like that.
Yep.
It got $40,000.
Exactly. And you got money. It's a lot more simpler to get yourself out of trouble versus an average Joe.
But, that's there. I'm thinking he's probably going to be suspended based on the findings of the court and everything that happens. He will be in violation of the player conduct policy. And what's really sad is that his friend, who is, I think, another wide receiver from SMU, was driving the other vehicle. He got suspended from his college team, and so he's going to have red flags and when it comes to his opportunity to go into the league, and he's getting charged with all the same stuff that Rashee Rice is getting charged with. And I think he's got a different lawyer. It'll be interesting to see what the punishment is for Ray or for Rashee compared to his teammate, former teammate at SMU, with a different lawyer and different money factors.
Exactly. You would think they would want the same lawyer. I just compared suspensions back to last year when the NFL fiercely suspended Jameson Williams last year for basically doing nothing wrong. I totally agree. I mean,
listen, you go ahead, and then I'll give you my statement on why it's not frivolous.
I mean, of course it's not going to be frivolous because, according to the rules that you can't, bet inside the NFL facility, a hotel that you're staying at. So, I mean, according to the rule book, you're right. 100%. But in reality, as long as it's not NFL games, it shouldn't be a rule. That's just my opinion. Because the NFL basically, to me, kind of made it like that when they went back and shortened his suspension all on their own for what he did. So to me, that's just my opinion.
Okay, first of all, when it comes to the integrity of the game, okay, it is of the utmost importance to the NFL that there is no impropriety. They have enough people questioning the referees already as it is, and I just know they're not going to call it the Sky Judge, but it's basically going to be the Sky Judge, okay, in the NFL. It is coming because of all the gambling and stuff that they're now in bed with, okay? The integrity of the game is of utmost importance. That's why he was suspended. The reason that it was reduced is because the NFL Players Association and the NFL had not yet devised and agreed to the gambling policy for players. And so there were tweaks being made, and once that became official, that changed the way the suspension was for multiple players, not just Jamison Williams. It went to a lesser degree. The NFL Players Association negotiated for, the terms of suspension to be, changed, and they got it, obviously, because, it was less than what they had originally gone through. You say that, it wasn't gambling on NFL games, but gambling's a slippery slope.
Oh, for sure. That's why, to me, that's why I think, I don't know, this is just my opinion. And it's not fair when I say this, because I totally get as players and being adults, they should have rights to gamble just like we do. But I think that in every sports league, the hockey, the football, to baseball, to anything, players should be able to bet, period, on anything. If you're a pro player and active on a team, you shouldn't be able to bet on anything. That way, this shit can stop. Because to me, what I have a problem is when a player's at a hotel and away game in his own room. The NFL does not own that fucking hotel. It's not theirs. They claim it is because they're there.
On a big trip.
And it's like, if he plays a Monday night game, they get there on Saturday and he bets on a college game that has nothing to do with the NFL. What is so wrong if he's in his room watching that game and relaxing? There is nothing wrong with that. That's just my opinion. So to me, instead of having to sit here and go and spend players for 3-4 games because they bet on a college game on a Saturday in a hotel, just make it where they can't bet on nothing. Simple as that. And then guess what? Now no one has to worry about shit.
Maybe they'll negotiate that in the next Players Association, referendums and things like that. But they just signed a new deal, with the NFL. It's going to be many years before they're ready to make any changes because the NFL needed to get the deal done for, what do I want to call it? Revenue assurity. Okay. They needed revenue assurity so that they could make a deal with the television networks and the streaming services and all of them in an effort to bring in more money and so on and so forth. Which comes to, we're going to talk streaming now. And that is, we have the first game has been announced. The Green Bay Packers are going to play against the Philadelphia Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil, on the opening Friday night. And the reason why they can play a Friday night game is twofold. High school football hasn't started yet, so they're not in violation of what Congress has as far as an impasse, and it's out of the country, not in the United States. So technically, they could play on a Friday night if they wanted to, during high school times, as long as it's out of the country. But they're not going to want to do that all the time. They don't want to upset any antitrust legislation that goes through Congress because that's what keeps them rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
But Green Bay at the Eagles from Brazil, it's going to be on Amazon Prime. And so if you get the Thursday night package for Amazon Prime, you'll catch the Friday night opening game after the Chiefs host whoever on the Thursday night game on NBC in the first weekend. What do you think of that matchup? I think that's a great matchup. That is a premier matchup, in my opinion, because you've got the Packers, who had a really nice run in the playoffs. We don't know who they're going to get in the draft, okay? But they got a new running game with Josh Jacobs coming in. We know what kind of wide receiver core they have. Jordan Love's going to be in his second year starting for Green Bay. And then on the other side, the former NFC champions in the Philadelphia Eagles with a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. They brought in Saquon Barkley at running back. They bolstered their defense, bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, among some other players. Now, they did lose Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox to retirement, but it's out with the old and in with the new. And, boy, I tell you what, I think that is a really primo matchup to put in Brazil week 1.
I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, you know where I stand. I don't really like these games going overseas, but at least they're doing it before high school football on a Friday like they did last year. And at least they're making it somewhat easier on these players, I think, by playing this game. To me, I think it's better to go to Brazil than being stuck to going to Europe in mid-season. So I think both teams actually lucked out on this with this matchup because it makes it a lot easier for them to do. And I think it's going to be a hell of a game. Because the Eagles, the Eagles are going to try to come out and show that they're back to norm. And the Packers are going to try to come out and show that they're going to give Detroit a real fight for the North. So I'm actually excited for the game. I'm excited to see how good the Packers look for this year from last year. And I want to see how the Eagles team is going to respond too. But like I said, I think they win. Because if they were going to send the Lions out overseas, this is the game I would particularly want, even though I still disagree with it. I would want this one than going to Europe in mid-season to me because your players are fresh and it's a lot easier to do it right off the bat than in mid-season after you just got done playing a game and then flying back and then having to play another game.
Well, they're going to have an extra 3 days. I'm assuming, okay, this is me with an assumption, okay. I'm telling you, the second weekend will be a Monday night doubleheader, and it'll be Green Bay hosting a team in Green Bay and Philadelphia hosting a team in Philadelphia. That gives them a couple extra days of rest, and they play on the Monday night, okay, in week 2.
I mean, honestly, that would make the best sense.
But, because they've been doing those Monday night doubleheaders. One will be on ESPN, the other one will be on ABC, and you'll get to catch the first hour plus of the Philadelphia game. And before that, you have to either flip over because they're not going to run them, continuously, until they do, lesser games later in the year.
Yeah.
We know you're biased, Ron. Obviously, you guys aren't going to root for Green Bay to beat Philadelphia.
We're never going to root for Green Bay.
Unless you needed them to beat them to get in the playoffs, or something like that later on down the road.
Exactly. I'm not a fan of it. Just to me, this is why, me personally, why I'm not a fan of it, just because it's not just because of the travel. I think it's kind of bullshit because because if you're the home team, your fans lose a home game out the deal.
That's not true. Okay.
It is true.
There are 17 games. Okay. You get 8 under the normal schedule. You get 8 home games and 8 away games. Well, now you have 8 home games, 8 away games, and 1 neutral field game, okay, that's being played in either London or Germany or Brazil now. They're adding Spain next year in Barcelona. Mexico City or Monterrey, Mexico. We're going to see games in Toronto within the next 2 years. They are spreading out this league, okay? And that's why I don't think the 18-game schedule is going to be here anytime soon, because having that 17th game gives them an opportunity and an excuse to play these neutral site games, okay? If every team plays a international game or neutral site game, then you're really gonna spread the wealth around, to these other countries. We were playing 2 games in Germany last year. We'll have 2 more games in Germany this year. There'll be 2 to 3 games in London. You're going to have 1 game in Brazil. I guarantee there'll be at least 1 game in Mexico, if not 2, because I expect 1 will be in Mexico City, 1 will be in Monterrey, where they've got the huge stadium there. Okay. Now, they haven't announced whether they're going to play a game in Toronto this year, but I wouldn't be stunned at all if they did. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have the opportunity to spread the game around. Okay. There are cities that would welcome an NFL matchup to their city. Okay. San Antonio, St. Louis, Virginia, Richmond. Okay. You've got those places. Portland, Utah, Salt Lake City. Okay. There are places that can hold Columbus, Ohio, the Big House in Michigan, which would technically be, if Detroit played there, that would be a home game, But I bet if they did that, these huge stadiums, if they have a neutral site game at these places, it's kind of like in the NHL, they have the Winter Classic where they play outside. Okay, in a baseball stadium or something like that. Well, they will have these neutral site games until they can fill up a full international schedule. If you have this is a really big test for them coming out of the gate. Week 1, they're going to have a Friday night game in Brazil. Okay, well, if they have a Friday night game in Brazil, that means they can have a Saturday game in Toronto once the college season is over, okay? Or they can have, once the college season's over, they can have a Friday night game somewhere else, especially if the team is coming off of a bye, depending on what's going on with the schedule.
I was going to say is I read an article with, what's his name, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, and he made it pretty known. He said the NFL goal is to actually have an expansion team in Europe at some point.
We're years from that.
I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
They talk about it, and they talk about it, and they talk about it. They have mentioned that they wanted to have a team in London for 25 years, and we're nowhere near or close to doing that. Yes, they've got the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which would be perfect for a team. But Jacksonville is not leaving Jacksonville now. They've got Trevor Lawrence there, so they have a quarterback who's a franchise player. They got Doug Peterson, who I'm sure would not have taken the job if he was told, hey, we're going to be moving to London here in a couple of years, And so I think that it is a dream concept for them, but the dream concept is not to have just another team in London, okay? It would be to have more franchises. The problem with that is that if you add more franchises, you take away more of the pie from the owners that already are involved, okay?
Well, see, why they keep going to the Jacksonville Jaguars is because the owner, he's the only foreign owner in the NFL. I forget what country he's from, and he actually has a strong connection in London. They said,
and that's fine. Okay, that's fine. But they're one of the teams that uses that as a bargaining chip, leverage to get a new and improved stadium. Okay?
Yeah.
Jacksonville's looking for a new stadium. Kansas City's looking for a new stadium. You're going to have, Chicago's looking for a new stadium. You're going to have other teams. Once they get to that 25-year mark, it's time to renovate or get a new stadium. Washington, it just feels like they just got FedEx Field, and they're looking for a new stadium. Okay? And
FedEx Field's been around for a long time now.
You're going to have other teams that are going to be looking for new stadiums. The Superdome is not going to last forever in New Orleans. Eventually, they're going to want a new stadium in New Orleans. Okay? I'm thinking about what other teams don't have a new stadium in the last 15 to 20 years. And I go through the list and I think to myself, Atlanta got a new stadium. Carolina does not have a new stadium. Okay?
No.
New Orleans doesn't have a new stadium. Tampa Bay, relatively new stadium. You go to the next division. Dallas has got AT&T. MetLife Stadium in New York. Washington wants a stadium. Lincoln Financial Field's relatively new. They don't need a stadium. You go to the next division. Green Bay's never going anywhere. That's the one team that will never relocate because it doesn't have a true owner. Okay? So they will continue to renovate Lambeau Field because of its historic, significance. But Chicago, they need a new stadium. Ford Field's fine. Minnesota just got a new stadium, so they don't need a stadium.
Well, just go back to Ford Field for a second.
SoFi, Quest Field, and Levi Stadium, and I think it's State Farm Stadium. Those are all new, so you don't have to worry about them. Okay. AFC, MetLife, they just completely renovated. It's Hard Rock Stadium in Florida, so they're not looking for a new stadium. Foxborough, I think Gillette Stadium's still pretty new. They're not going to try and do anything, especially when they're losing their ass right now. Buffalo, they're in the process of getting a new stadium. Okay,
yeah.
Buffalo's getting a new stadium. Okay, then you've got Cincinnati, pretty recently new. Cleveland, pretty recently new. Heinz Field, which is now something else, pretty recently new. Baltimore just got a new stadium. Let's see, out west. So you got Kansas City. Denver's fine. Vegas got a new stadium. And then the Chargers moved to LA. So you've got Buffalo, Chicago, Carolina, Kansas City, Jacksonville. Who am I missing? Tennessee's getting a new stadium. I forgot about the AFC South. Houston's got a pretty good new stadium. Indianapolis has got Lucas Oil Field. So there's six teams in the NFL that are looking to get new stadiums. And they will leverage London as one of the possibilities, if they have to get the locals. And we talked about this last week with Kansas City. Okay. If Kansas City doesn't get the money to renovate Arrowhead Stadium from the Kansas City, Missouri residents, they'll move to Kansas City, Kansas, who's prepared to pay for the whole fucking thing. They're not going to Dallas. They're not going to Chicago. They're not going to go to London. The Kansas City Chiefs will be the Kansas City Chiefs, even if they're on the Kansas City side of Kansas.
Yeah. Now just go back to Ford Field. I don't think it's going to happen this year, obviously. I don't think it's going to happen next year. It may not happen for a couple years, but but Rob Woods has mentioned that Sheila is actually already looking into building a new stadium for the Lions. She wants to build a facility where the practice field, the NFL stadium, and with all state-of-the-art workout equipment, everything for the players all in one location. Because right now the players have to drive to Allen Park for practice, and then the game day they have to drive up to Detroit, which is only like maybe a half hour. If there's traffic, maybe 40 minutes to get between places. But at some point, they did mention that Sheila is really looking into, because she wants a new state-of-art stadium with everything for the players at all one site. So it's just honestly when she's going to pull the plug to start doing that. And here, I feel like the Ford family and her family, even with the bad pass of the Lions, they only left the Silverdome because they didn't want to split the money with the city of Pontiac anymore. They built Ford Field 100% with their own money. They make 100% profit. So when they pull the plug to build the new stadium that she wants, I'm pretty sure she will pay the money all herself and do it all again, so she keeps all the profit and don't have to pay anybody anything from the stadium that she makes. Because they have both worlds. I mean, when we get big concerts, like huge concerts, Ford Field's where they're at 90% of the time. And when you get Garth Brooks in there selling out a whole stadium, from the stage to all the way up, that's all money in their pockets. They do not owe anybody money other than the band.
Okay, now this is where we get into the politics of the NFL. There is no chance in hell that the Detroit Lions get a new stadium before those other 6 teams do, especially if they're going to pay for it themselves, because that will undermine the efforts of the other owners to hamstring the local communities for part of the cost through taxes.
But what are you talking about, David? The Lions already did it once.
No, but there wasn't anybody that needed a stadium at the time. Okay.
Yeah, but the NFL can't stop them from building a stadium.
They will not do it because it will affect the other owners. These owners are in cahoots together. They know what they need to do. They will politically strategize and do things in an effort to protect each other. Okay? The wild cards of the Al Davises are gone now. Okay? They look out for each other's best interest because what's in the other owner's best interest is in their interest as well.
Daddy,
Hey, what are we doing here?
Does it go like?
I agree with you, Reddit. That's what it's looking like. It's looking like they're going to get a dome stadium in downtown Chicago, still the riverfront, and everything. I think the Bears would do better in the suburbs just because traffic, parking, and a lot of etc. But you know what I mean? It's Chicago. You still got the Cubs in downtown. So I think that plays a huge part. Is you got the White Sox / downtown, just kind of a little on the outside of downtown. You got Wrigley Field there. You got Soldier Field there. So it's kind of like Detroit is, for years before Ford Field, the Lions and the Pistons, the Lions played in Pontiac, which was right next to Auburn Hills. And then you had the Pistons in Auburn Hills. They were the only 2 sport teams to actually leave Detroit and play north of Detroit. You always had the Red Wings and the Tigers in Detroit. Now you got all the sports teams in Detroit. And it really benefits everybody to be in Detroit. So I think that's going to play a lot in Chicago, even though to me as a fan, it would probably make it easier if the stadium was out of downtown with how much traffic Chicago gets just in vacation spots, etc. Plus, dealing with football fans as well. So I do see your point, but it's the moneymaker down. I mean, just like now with the Lions in Detroit, you got the Red Wings in Detroit, you got the Tigers. Those 3 teams make a lot of money together. Just like instantly, you had the Tigers game on opening day Friday. The Red Wings are fighting for playoff spots. Half of the Tiger fans went right from Comerica Park, walked less than a quarter mile right into the Red Wings Stadium, and kept partying through the day. So it's a double whammy for the city when you got teams, especially like baseball, when football first starts. They get done at 4 o'clock. The beers start at 4:20. Those fans just go from Wrigley Field over to Soldier Field, and now you got people doing double headers in the city. So that's another reason why I think they truly don't want to leave Chicago, because, like I said, when you got teams that close and you have other teams that might play an earlier game, but you can go still catch this game at night or a little bit after the baseball game ends in early September, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, so I'm sorry I got interrupted by my son. Today's his birthday. He's putting together a toy, and I needed him.
Let's give a big shout out. Happy birthday,
Ryan. Ryan's 8 years old. So anyway, I want to finish my point on the Detroit getting a new stadium. I think it is more likely that over the next 5 to 7 years that they'll probably get a brand new practice facility built closer to the stadium than it will be for them to have a new stadium, because they got to get these older stadium teams taken care of. Ford Field is a relatively new stadium in comparison to some of these other teams, and so they're going to do it slowly. Okay, whether they pay for it all on their own is beside the point. But if they do decide to pay for it all their own, okay, that will undermine. That's one of the reasons why they won't do it until these other stadiums are taken care of. That will undermine the other owners trying to get some tax money to help them build a stadium. Okay, you talk about Chicago. Chicago right now is up in arms over where they're going to put the stadium. Arlington Heights or next to Soldier Field, where, people wanted to stay, there rather than take it out of Chicago. I don't care. I'm not a Bears fan. We already talked about it last week, how you've got New York teams playing in New Jersey. The Dallas Cowboys play in Arlington, Texas. The 49ers don't play in San Francisco. They play in Santa Clara, And so you have these teams that are not actually in the city that they are supposedly representing. And we talked about how, these teams and the NFL itself has tricked us into thinking because that team is got the name, let's just go for Detroit, that it's your team. It's not your team. They can up and leave and do whatever the hell they want to do, and they don't have to listen to you. Okay? They can do what they want. It's their team. They own the team. All they do is, entrap you with, it's our local team. And, then they have the false patriotism at the beginning before the games. And this is what we're doing for the community. When we're rolling in billions. But we're rolling in the billions, but we're going to donate $50,000 to the Boys and Girls Club of, local Detroit.
No, I totally agree, because to me, when it comes to stadiums, and that's to me where Chicago really needs to really figure out. And to me, that should start with doing polls with their fan base and see if their fans would even travel there. Because, instance, let's look at the Pistons right now. When the new Red Wing Stadium got built, they got a deal to move into LCA to play there. They do not sell games. They're literally selling. They suck. But that's beside the point. They can't even sell tickets as high as anybody else because their big fan base was all in Auburn Hills. All the people who lived there would rather go to Piston games and be season ticket holders because now they don't got to drive an hour to the city and then drive back home. So they left their whole big fan base that they had at every game, regardless if they sucked or not. Now they're in Detroit, and out of all the three teams, they're the ones making the less money on it. So to me, when it comes to picking these stadiums, to me, Chicago really needs to play that factor. Are they still going to make the same amount of money if they move out of the city and make people drive a half hour through traffic to get out of downtown, to get to the northern suburbs? Because I drove through Chicago probably good 5,000 times when I drove a truck for almost 10 years. I know how bad that traffic can be. It could be a pain in the ass. They got a bypass, and they claim, oh, it's the fastest way around the city to another suburbs. Yeah, if you want to sit in traffic for an hour and a half almost every time you go on the damn thing, sure it is. You know what I mean? So to me, that's what the Chicago Bears really need to do. And Ron, I agree, the Lions should win a Super Bowl first before they build a new stadium. Like I said, I don't know when she's expecting to start this project. I just know Rob Woods himself said that is one of the next goals she wants is a new stadium and everything at once, and she's going to do it at some point. So it could be 5-6 years.
Yeah.
It could be another 10 years.
Yep.
It's not been official said. It's just she's been doing a lot of changes quick. So it's just basically on what she wants to do it. And depending on what David said could be the holdup. It could be. But I don't play that much. I don't view it like that because to me, people are not stupid. People know these teams make billions of dollars and they know they can afford the damn stadium their damn self. And if people really buy how David's looking at it and how the other owners are, trying to use it, that's just to me is really stupidity because that's not true at all. They want you to think it's true because who don't want a free stadium paid by the tax dollars and they profit? I mean, that's just how these teams make money and become worth billions. I mean, let's look at the LA Rams. We're going to leave LA to go to St. Louis. Oh, St. Louis ain't going to build the stadium, but wait a minute, LA is going to build us a tax-free stadium, top of the line, and we're going to make all the damn profit. Woo! Here we come.
Last point on stadiums here before we go to best available draft, by position and stuff. I just want to go back and highlight, if you would, the comment by Ron. He wanted to find out. He missed the show last week about the Kansas City, tax vote on the stadium. Ron, the deal there, just real briefly, because we did discuss it last week, is it was adjoined with the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals, they're trying to move them downtown where there's no parking. It would put small businesses out of business, and that's why the tax vote failed. If they had just did it for the Kansas City Chiefs and hadn't been adjoined to the Royals, they'd have got the money that they wanted to renovate the Chiefs without any problems. But now because that failed, I think they're going to have to go in another direction. They either need to get some sort of a vote on the ballot that is just the Kansas City Chiefs, because they're not really in any danger of leaving. Even though we know leases can be broke, the Chiefs have a lease that's signed in good faith through 2031. They have 7 years within which to come up with some kind of solution to either completely renovate Arrowhead Stadium or get a new stadium built elsewhere. Now, Kansas City, Kansas has already offered to build them a new stadium. They're going to pay for the whole thing. They're going to bring the Chiefs over to the Kansas side of Kansas City. And the people in Missouri are completely up in arms because, it's a big thing having the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, Missouri. It's a lot of political infighting, between Missouri's better than Kansas. And, it's just stupid,
Yeah.
Okay. There was, the talk of, we'll bring them to Dallas. That's just the Dallas mayor trying to, stir shit with Jerry Jones. Okay. They're not going to be leaving. They have plenty of time to come up with something. And even though, there are, posts on Facebook trying to show that the Hunts are richer in hell and greedy and all this other shit, they're just trying to do what they have always done, which is get tax breaks, tax incentives, and tax money, like 5/8 of a cent or something, if I'm correct, okay, in order to help renovate the stadium because people want to leave Arrowhead where it is. The Royals are hell-bent determined to leave the Truman Sports Complex, which will give a lot more area when they tear it down for the Chiefs to have tailgating and, turn it into a mecca, if you will, for Kansas City Chief fans. More parking, more, spectacle, fountains, gift shops, things that are revolving around the Chiefs and the NFL and football. And so that's basically what's going on right now. I expect that they're going to get some sort of renovation money together, and they are going to renovate Arrowhead Stadium. I don't think, because of the noise level that is created by that stadium, that they're going to be moving, because that's something that is a point of pride. The NFL prides in it, the Chiefs pride in it, the fans pride in it, and so everybody's proud. And I think that it's going to continue, to be there. They're really not going to – I don't think there's any chance that they're moving. But because the tax vote failed, everybody was losing their minds like they were leaving tomorrow. And
yeah.
That's the case.
He's also said, I'm going to drive from Illinois to Pontiac Silverdome when I lived in Illinois. I thought it was very traffic friendly for me. That being said, I've never been to the new Alliance Stadium, so it's hard to compare. I mean, Ford Field's not bad to get to, being 100% honest. For me, I usually just take Gratiot all the way down, and it's way faster than the interstate. But yeah, Pontiac Silverdome was right off of Hall Road and just not far off of 75. It was pretty easy to get in and out with the big parking lot. And it was a good stadium. I'm not gonna lie. I wish maybe they tore that stadium down and moved to maybe the big field for a couple of years and rebuilt the new stadium right there. To me, that was a great location for the stadium. But, Pontiac didn't want to, Pontiac the Lions did go to Pontiac. They wanted to fix the build a new stadium because, the roof was falling apart. The stadium needed big upgrades at the time. And, City Pontiac said, we're not building you a new stadium. We don't got the money for it. And that's when the owners, that's when Ford itself paid all the money to build Ford Field 100% out of his own pocket. So that way he didn't have to deal with another city on asking for a new stadium and not be in that mess. And that's how we got Ford Field. And, don't get me wrong, Ford Field's a beautiful stadium. I just really hope two things happen. If they really do pull a trigger and build a new stadium, is either if it's going to be a dome, have it like Vegas, where you can pull the grass out and maintain it so we can play on real grass, or do everybody a favor and build an open stadium. But I don't think that will happen because, like I said previously, when I was bringing up before, they host a lot of big concerts and they make a lot of money when they have big-time bands in the wintertime coming to Ford Field. So especially if they pay for the new stadium at that point, all 100% from their pocket, and Detroit's not coming, don't pay nothing towards it, I don't think they change it to open stadiums. At least have it where you can pull the football field outside and go real grass. Put a whole retractable roof on a nice day. That would be pretty cool. But at least when that time comes, put some real grass in the damn stadium. I'm sick of the turf.
Okay, so now we're going to start talking about...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What do we got?
Oh, I was just reading his comment. He said if you build
and everybody, that's another thing when it comes to these stadiums, and we're kind of getting stuck on this. But when you build a new stadium, you get a Super Bowl, okay? And so every team wants, that's the one thing that, Kansas City would love to do. They hosted the draft, okay, which can be an outdoor deal because of the time of year that it's going on. But if you want to host a Super Bowl, you got to have either a retractable roof stadium. You're going to need a new stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I as not a person that is from Missouri and not a person that really has a dog in the fight, because Kansas City is Kansas City to me. Okay. I don't distinguish it between Kansas and Missouri. When I say I'm going to Kansas City, I'm going to Kansas City, the whole place. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, it's same thing.
Yeah, for me. And so I would love to see them build a brand new stadium. Okay. I would love to see it on the Kansas side, because if they're going to pay for it, why wouldn't you let them? But I want a retractable roof stadium. I want one that is built in the mold of Arrowhead for the sound. Okay. And I want it to have the grass field that rolls in and out, just like they do in Vegas and in Arizona. Okay. And so, those would be the things that I would want if I was going to build a brand new stadium for the Chiefs on the Kansas City side of Kansas. Okay. But that's the stuff that I would want. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but, people can dream. Now,
exactly.
Talk about next weekend here on the Sunday Spectacular, we're going to have our mock draft, and it'll be a little bit different than it was last year. Me and Chris, at the very least, are going to go through, and we're going to draft for the 32 teams in the first round. We'll discuss why we think they're taking a certain player. Do we think there's going to be any trades? I just think that, currently, with the way things are, it'll be a lot of fun. We've got running on the ticker right now, it's going with offensive linemen, but we're going to start out with quarterbacks here shortly, because you got quarterbacks. That's the main thing that's going to happen here. Teams are going to get their quarterbacks in the first round. Chris, would you run the quarterbacks on the ticker? We've talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. And, I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that Caleb Williams is going to go to the Chicago Bears. But after that, it's up in the air. But you have these teams that need quarterbacks. Washington at 2, New England at 3, maybe the Giants at 6, definitely the Vikings at 11, the Broncos at 12, and the Raiders at 13. And so in those three, and are they willing to wait and be happy with whoever falls to them? Because this is supposedly a deep quarterback draft. And so, the top 6 quarterbacks, you've got Caleb Williams. Drake May, in my opinion, has fallen a little bit. So he isn't necessarily the second best quarterback. I've got Jaden Daniels at 2. I don't necessarily have Drake May at 3 either. But it just goes on, does he fit the system for these teams? Is he going to be what it is that they're looking for? Does he fit for Washington or New England? Or does he get past those, and end up with, the Vikings, Broncos, Raiders? I'm not sure the Giants are going to draft a quarterback. I think that they're going to stand pat at least one more year with Daniel Jones, because it looks like they're either going to show that they made the right decisions this offseason by letting Saquon Barkley go and sticking with Daniel Jones, or it's going to be a whole new regime change, and they'll be drafting for a quarterback, and they'll get a much higher pick because they're going to suck if they don't play well.
Ron said he sees big movement in this draft for QBs, and I think so too. I think this draft could be pretty crazy.
I'm just on first glance, okay, I think that, it's going to be Jaden Daniels going to Washington. I think there's a strong possibility J.J. McCarthy goes to New England. And I think that that's going to be a big decision for Minnesota. Do they want to go with Drake May, or should they go with Bo Nix? Okay. Or are they, haven't heard a whole lot about Michael Penix Jr. out there. Is he their style of quarterback? I think the left-hander ends up with the Raiders. And I think that Nix and May, it could be, flip-flopped between Denver and Minnesota. those are kind of what I'm looking at when it comes to, the quarterback situation as of right now. Anything different from you, Chris?
Not too much. I'm kind of agreeing with Ron here. I feel like Minnesota might do something crazy to move up, just because they've been heavily scouting JJ and meeting with him and following him. Also, New England and Washington has been linked to him, but I really think it's going to become. I think the two teams that really want JJ are New England and Minnesota. That's just my opinion. So I could see Minnesota completely moving up. And just why I think Minnesota is really in this mix is because they have, I forget the guy's name, and I'm not sure if he's the GM or a little higher than the GM, but he has a strong connection to Michigan. That's why they trying to get Jim Harbaugh the year prior to this season to possibly become the coach, before Kevin McConnell actually got hired. So I could just see that happening because of the connection there. I feel like they scout a lot of Michigan players, very heavily there. But to me, they would have to try to get the number 2 spot because I really feel like New England would take JJ. Because they play a similar offense in New England. Run first, pass second.
Let's go to wide receivers. Okay, with wide receivers, okay, and I agree. You watch the number 2 spot on, but
I fucked up. I forgot wide receivers.
Okay, well, we're going to talk wide receivers because that's the next position that's going. Okay, wide receivers, everybody's been talking for 2 years about Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, he's got the bloodlines. Okay, Ohio State is a wide receiver factory, and all of that, but he didn't perform at the combine. Okay, he didn't do anything at the combine. He didn't do it on his pro day. They don't have a 40 time. And the reason why they don't have a 40 time is because he doesn't want to do it to show how much slower he is compared to these other top flight wide receivers. Now, he might be a can't miss possession receiver in the NFL, but these guys are looking for speed. They're looking for explosive plays in the NFL. Okay. And that's why, in my opinion, Malik Neighbors goes first at wide receiver. I think there's a real good possibility that he gets taken by the Cardinals. They lost Marquise Brown. Okay. We can't see that. You'll have to zoom really far in if you're going to do that. And so, Malik Neighbors from LSU, okay, he had huge speed, great catch radius, and he comes from a pro-style offense. And so I think that he's one of these guys that you're looking at that, he's going to be going ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., Now, maybe, like I said, Marvin Harrison Jr. may be the kind of prospect that you can't miss on, and they'll just take the safe pick. But I think that it's more likely that he ends up going to the Chargers than he does going to Arizona. Okay? Then you have the other top 6 wide receivers that are going to be available, that are probably going in the first round. You go from these 2 guys to Rome Odunze, okay, who played at Washington. And Rome Odunze, okay, I see him going to possibly either, the New York Giants could use a wide receiver. Tennessee Titans could use a wide receiver. And then you've got, I think it's Brian Thompson, the second, the other wide receiver from, it's either Thomas or Thompson, I can't remember, is from LSU. He's a speedster also. You got the 2 wide receivers, arguably, from, Texas, and Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. But you also have, I think it's, Keontae Coleman, from Florida State. So those are your wide receivers. The Chiefs may be looking for another wide receiver, not necessarily because of the Rashee Rice situation. The other teams looking for wide receivers: Jacksonville, Buffalo. Buffalo lost Stephon Diggs. They forced. He forced his way out to go to Houston. Does Justin Jefferson get traded? If Justin Jefferson gets traded, if the quarterback that Minnesota wants falls to 11, do they use the 23rd pick on a wide receiver and team him with Jordan Addison and trade Justin Jefferson to somebody because they can't afford him? And maybe he doesn't want to be there because it's a rookie quarterback. He doesn't want to grow with the team. He's looking to win now. It sounds like T. Higgins is going to remain on the franchise tag with Cincinnati, so I don't expect them to draft a wide receiver. But Pittsburgh traded Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers, and they are really good in deciphering good wide receivers in Pittsburgh. So maybe they'll be looking and have their eye on a guy in the first round. And then we talked about it last week, and we could go to running backs, if you will, Chris, that nobody's talking about the possibility of a running back going in the first round. And I talked about it. Dallas is kind of waiting in the wings. They're all in, but ain't done a damn thing this whole offseason. Okay? Now there's talk they're going to bring Ezekiel Elliott back on a lower deal after he spent the year with the Patriots. But you've got a guy who played at Texas. Yes, he's coming off an injury in Jonathan Brooks. Or are they looking for the workhorse type of player that Blake Corum would bring them out of Michigan? They're picking low enough in the first round, they might even trade back and still get the running back that they want, because nobody's talking about a running back going in the first round. And I think that's the perfect place to draft the running back, because if you get a running back in the first round, you can exercise that fifth-year option and keep them around longer and keep them on the cheap, if you will, because once they hit free agency, they're going to want that big money, and you may have already run them to death. And so, you can just draft another and move on. Running backs don't want to hear that, but, that's kind of the truth of how things work. And so, just looking at these other guys, I don't think any of the other players in the running back of the top six you have. What's up, buddy? Shut my door. Anyway, I don't think anybody else that's in the top six other than those two. I know you've got Jalen Wright at number 2 out of Tennessee, but I think that between either Brooks and Corum, those are the only two that could possibly go in the first round. The rest of them will be later on down the road.
I think so too.
Yeah, offensive linemen. There's a lot of teams that could use offensive line, and this is a deep offensive line draft. Where do you see offensive linemen going? I know you think Detroit is not looking for more depth on the offensive line.
Oh, I think we do. I just don't think we take a first-round pick on offensive linemen.
I think your defensive linemen that you need, the pass rushers, there's really only 2 or 3 are going to be gone, and Detroit's going to end up trading down to acquire more picks.
I can see that happening, but why I think that is still not going to happen is because they've been heavily bringing in cornerbacks. So I think if Kool-Aid's there, I'm just going to throw up quarterbacks up on the screen real quick. We're talking about. I think if Kool-Aid's there or any of these big 6 are still there at 29, we take a quarterback. If we don't take a quarterback then, we're going to go defensive lineman or trade down. I just don't see us taking a tackle or offensive lineman. I just don't see us taking offensive lineman at 29 for one simple fact is all of our starters are back. We lost one starter, We made a big free agent signing from Baltimore. So we filled our whole starting offensive lineman. Yes, we do need depth, but I think that depth's going to come in the third or fourth round in the offensive lineman. I think they're going to go defense out of the ball right out the gate, get the players that they're going to need to probably start heading into next season, because a couple of those guys will become starters right off the bat. So that's where I truly think Detroit's at with offensive linemen, because to me, why are you going to draft an offensive lineman in the first round when he's not even going to see the field? And you have bigger holes that you need to fill still on the other side of the ball.
Offensive lineman for me in the first round, definitely the Jets. They missed out on their offensive lineman last year when New England and Pittsburgh made a deal for Broderick, Thomas. I think that, the Jets need to get an offensive lineman here. They got to protect Aaron Rodgers. They can't afford him to go down early again after what happened last year. I think the Saints may be looking for a tackle. You've got J.C. Latham there as the number one offensive lineman, rated by CBS Sports. That's where we get our ranking here on the ticker. But Joe Alt, a lot of people are saying, Joe Alt is the guy that they would take first. And so when it comes to offensive linemen, Seattle, New Orleans, the Jets, I think that, just going through and looking at the other places, Miami definitely, they lost Robert Hunt. And so, those teams all need offensive line help. Any other teams you think could use an offensive lineman, Chris?
This is what I feel like Miami. I feel like Miami.
Yeah, Ron says Dallas. Tyron Smith went to the Jets, but I think he is just a stopgap. He's got like 12 years in the league, and he's been injury prone the last few years. That's why I still think the Jets will take an offensive lineman.
I could see the Steelers too.
Well, they just took one last year, and they were a lot better this last year at offensive line. I think that'll show out when they have a competent quarterback in either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields back there throwing the ball.
And Atlanta's probably going to go wide out at 8, I would think.
I'm not sure that's the case. I could see them going with the tight end Bowers out of Georgia and teaming him with Kyle Pitts. That gives another weapon for Kirk Cousins to throw the ball to, because they've got, Drake London at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Who else did they just bring in free agency? I forget, but I know they picked up somebody, and it was a good deal for them.
Yeah. Ryan got Arizona at 27. I can definitely see that too.
Well, we think they may be taking one at 4, but
and actually,
definitely take one if they trade out of 4.
Well, they got to pick 27, so they may go offense, or maybe even they may go running back. They could be the Blake Horn pick. I mean, it'd be crazy, but they could do it. Especially if they're going to keep Kyler Murray anyway. And the best running back on the team is Connor, which to me, Connor's starting to get older, and he's kind of hit and miss, so I could see them being the trigger on a Blake Horn. Because if you're going to keep Murray, him and Blake Horn wouldn't be a bad package to have in your backfield there. And then they could get an offense lineman at 27, so I could see that depending on what they, like you said, depending really what they do in that 4th pick.
Let's go.
And Green Bay. Because Green Bay just retired and left. The one that's always hurt.
Yeah.
Yep. So Green Bay possibly at 25 for offensive lineman.
Yeah, so, looking at defensive line, and I know that what we have here, I think those are just tackles, right? These are not
yeah, these are just tackles.
So you don't have Dallas Turner on there. I think that when it comes to that could be Atlanta's pick. I think that we talked about the Raiders could use some pass rush. The Colts need pass rush. Cincinnati needs pass rush. Miami has no defense. Buffalo currently has no. They had to give up so many defensive players, and so you've got a lot of teams that you could be spotting a defensive lineman there. I don't really have any read on who likes who, other than I heard rumors that Dallas Turner to Atlanta at 8, but somebody else said they think that's too high for him.
Yeah. I think defensive linemen could go to the Lions, possibly. Baltimore might even be in the talks of defensive linemen.
And then we didn't really talk about, Sweat from Texas got the DUI, so he's already, got a flag, got a problem. But that didn't stop him, Philadelphia, from drafting Jalen Carter in the first round last year.
Yeah.
With his problem that he had with the traffic incident, and going crazy. And so maybe it won't cause Sweat to fall too awful far. Some people think he's dropped out of the first round because of this incident. And I think that if he doesn't have a long record of this type of thing happening, that teams will consider it an isolated incident and they'll weigh the talent over the infraction and take him in the first round.
Also, the Rams, they just lost Donald, so they might be looking to get the next star.
That's Byron Murphy right there.
Also, I could see the Bengals possibly doing the same, defensive lineman as well. Also, I just want to go back to running backs just for a second. I overlooked Tennessee here at 7. So depending on what the Cardinals do, Blake Corum or one of the other running back that could go in the first round could go to 7.
Tennessee picked up Tony Pollard, and they're going to pair him with Tyjae Spears.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I forgot they got Pollard.
Yeah, they're Senate running back.
Ron says, DL, I think Atlanta, Raiders, Colts, even though they love to continue the Harrison thing going, but that's not happening. Bengals, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo.
Yeah.
Could be very powerful because those teams you just speak of, they fixed a lot of offensive problem. Like Pittsburgh got Russell Wilson. Buffalo could still be going wide out since Diggs is gone.
I'm not sure we're going to see any linebackers taken in the first round. But if you want to show the top 6 linebackers that are supposedly available, you got Junior Colson. He's a really good player out of Michigan. But I don't think that any of these teams, maybe Miami, maybe Buffalo, I think it'll be later in the first round if somebody decides to take a linebacker, because I really think that the secondaries, that's where people are looking. You got the heavy draft picks in the first round are quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive linemen, and then corners. And so when it comes to corners, I'm looking at Jacksonville could use one. Buffalo needs to replace Tre'Davious White. They need somebody to pair with, the guys they have in Minnesota. Dallas has said at corner they're going to get Trevon Diggs back. I'm just looking at the later part of the rounds. Maybe Green Bay, somebody to pair with Jair Alexander. There's some possibilities here and there. I think Baltimore might be a spot for a corner. But the person that I've looked at, there's 2 people that they have talked the most about on the radio and on the sports channels and everything, and that is, oh my God, we've got a white corner in Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Okay, and everybody's raving about this guy. And then Chris Sims talked about Mitchell from Toledo, and he thinks that he'd be stunned if he made it past 12 in the first round. And so, there he is, Quinyon Mitchell Jr. from Toledo. CBS Sports has him rated as the 4th best corner. But he says if he had Alabama or Ohio State in his helmet instead of Toledo, they'd not give a second thought about drafting him in the top 10.
I think you could see Cooper Dean go in the first round. Obviously Kool-Aid, the Lions, but I'm kind of okay with Kool-Aid goes as long as we can grab Mike Singletary out of Michigan.
Give me a minute. I'm almost done. Why do you not have your glasses on?
I tried to build because.
Go get your glasses and come back. All right. So anyway, this is just our preliminary looks here at who we think some of the teams are going to like and take. But next week, when you join us, we're going to do the first round. Just the first 32 picks in the draft. Me and Chris, maybe a couple of guests to help us make the selections. But we're going to have our mock draft next week. That'll be the focus unless there's some big news or trades. The bulk of the broadcast.
Just real quick, I don't know how true it is, but supposedly, breaking news, Juju Smith-Schuster just got caught showing his man junk on Snapchat. And accidentally. I don't know if there's going to be any punishment for that, but there's that. It's these players are Snapchat.
Indecent exposure, 2-game suspension, fined by the commissioner, and whatever. It'll be community service or something. They'll get him for something.
It could, for sure. But hey, Ron, I'm okay with Mike Singletary out of Michigan. That kid's a beast, and Michigan played the most pro-ready defense of any college football. So I'm okay with Kool-Aid. I'm okay with Mike. So if Mike's going to be there at 29, just take Mike. If Kool-Aid's gone, I think it's but I don't put this past the Lions just because they've been high on Alabama players. But all right, guys, I think that's all we got for tonight, and we'll see you next week for the mock draft. I know we got Pete coming in, or I think it's Pete. It's either Pete or Jason. I know for sure he's going to come on. I think it's Jason now. I'm more to think about it. He actually runs his own broadcast, and he's very knowledgeable. So he's going to be on with us next week. And I will talk to a couple other people that I have in mind. And so me and Dave will for sure be here during the mock draft. We'll have Jason with us and possibly one other guest, maybe even another one. We'll see what happens. But don't miss next week's show because it will be the mock draft, and this is one of our favorite shows to do. And because we like to see how much our picks turn out to be correct. I think last year we hit on a few of them.
Detroit's taking a bust in the first round, and the rest don't matter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, KC's going to get that bust in the first round. They'll be coming at me.
We already have in the past, so.
Hey, it could possibly happen because, Brad Holmes has hit on all of his picks in the last 2 years.
He's done well.
And guess what? You're human. At the end of the day, you are human. You're going to make a bad pick. You're going to make a pick that turns out to be a bad pick. I don't care who you are.
Let me tell you something that I find, just real quick to put a button on it, okay? I think that NIL has helped in the drafting process in the NFL because some of these kids already have money.
Yes.
They can see if they still play hard. They can see if they still love the game. They're making money. Are they still, engaged and it's important to them and they care and they got heart? And when they see that, because these kids got money already coming in. They're like, this kid here can be a real good player for us.
And see, and here's my thing too. I think
a lot of busts.
Exactly. I think NIL deals have really helped out because some of these kids are making millions already just playing college. So now you got these kids taking that money. They're over there going to personal trainers now, working out in the off season the last couple of years because now guess what? They have the money to go to these special trainers that help the NFL players get better, stronger, faster in the off season. So now you've got these players, they're already doing things because now they can afford to do it like the NFL players, and that transitions on the field in college. And like David just pointed out, they know what kids are making millions. And guess what? What's the biggest reasons to see the busts happen and drafts over the last 20 years? Kids get a big fat payday right out the gate.
Yep, they screw everything up.
Also, they just released that Goff is expected to sign an extension with the Detroit Lions up to $40 to $50 million a year. So that should be coming out in the next couple days, I'm assuming. And then I think St. Brown's going to be right behind them with his. And then we go from there. Exactly. I think St. Brown will have one before the draft's here. They're talking. They're talking upwards to 150 to 180 mil total. I think I've seen for him because I'm assuming he's going to get probably a 7-year deal. Because I think St. Brown's going to be one of the first line players that get a big time long term contract out of Brad Holmes and the new Lions front office. Because he's young enough, he's proven that he's worth the lockup for a long period of time. So I think he's going to get a big payday and be the first long-term deal signing. Because that's how I think the Lions are going to be doing things. And you're going to see these kids start getting longer deals with them. But every player that comes in is going to have to earn that big deal. And that's why I know a lot of fans have been bitching about free agency, that we ain't going to sign this guy when we have the money. But I think they're trying a little new style to this free agent and signings, is they're trying to make players come in here and earn those long-term deals.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here for another edition of the Fourth and Goal Sports Podcast. I've enjoyed it again, Chris. Thanks for being our host.
No problem, buddy. No problem. I'm just glad to be back.
For the mock draft right here on the Sunday Night Spectacular.
All right, guys, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next Sunday, 8 p.m. Don't miss it. Good night, guys. Later.